Hello, dreamer. Tonight, let me tell you what the world forgot. You hear it first in the stillness. The wind holds its breath. Trees don't rustle, they listen. Somewhere beneath your feet, the bones of giants shift slightly in their frozen graves. You're standing under a sky that feels too quiet, not peaceful, just wrong. It's the kind of silence that makes you want to whisper, even though no one's around. Because something is listening back. The world you walk through is not yours. Not yet. It belongs to gods. To wolves. To words whispered into the roots of a tree so large, its branches cradle dimensions like fruit. You've heard the stories. Yggdrasil, the world tree, rising from nothing to bind together 9 realms, all floating in a balance so delicate that even thought feels heavy. And this place, Midgard, your little human world? It hangs low on the tree, like a sleepy apple near the rot. But it's still part of the tree. Still tethered. Still vulnerable. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment below. Where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't start by seeing the gods fall. That's too cinematic. Too loud. No, you notice it in the hush. The shift. You trudge across frostbitten dirt. Grass that once glowed with morning dew now crunches with a layer of ice so thin you almost mistake it for glass. And above you, the sun hesitates, not gone, not shining, just waiting. Asgard still looks glorious from here. Gold towers, silver arches, everything in that obnoxious celestial symmetry gods seem to enjoy. But you don't need to see the cracks to know they're there. You can feel them. In the air. In the ground. In the very idea of forever. Odin still sits on the throne. One eye. One raven. 1,000 thoughts he'll never admit to having. You're not close enough to hear him speak, but you can tell by the way his fingers tap Gungnir, his ever-sharp spear, that something is bothering him. Something deep. What is it that gods fear, you wonder? Simple. Irrelevance. And you, well, you're in the front row. The signs don't come as fire and screams. That's amateur stuff. No, the signs are subtle. Elegant. They come as rumors the wind won't quite finish. A raven that flies in a circle twice before fleeing. A well that bubbles without anyone there to draw water. In Midgard, someone sneezes and blames it on the cold. In Niflheim, someone else hears a knock on a door that's been sealed for centuries. You sleep through most of it, curled under furs and starlight, but when you wake, something is always different. The stars have rearranged themselves. The moon is a little farther away. And the wolves, oh, the wolves, they're louder, braver, closer. People talk about omens, as if they come written in glowing ink. They don't. They come as instinct. A chill that doesn't fade. A gut twist you can't explain. The feeling you get when someone stands behind you, and you turn to find no one there. That's how Ragnarok begins. Not with a horn, but with a whisper. You're walking the road between realms, not a literal path, of course, but a feeling that drags you through memory and dream. Every now and then, you catch glimpses, a frozen battlefield, a girl with a snake wrapped around her waist, a black ship slowly rising through fog made of breath. And over it all, the hum of a tree too ancient to die, even as its bark splits open. Yggdrasil is trembling. Not visibly. Not even violently. But something in its roots is loosening. You feel it under your toes. A slow release, like a hand unclenching, and the fear isn't that the world will fall. It's that the world will change. And gods don't like change. Back in Asgard, Odin does something strange. He stops speaking. Not forever. Just enough. Long enough for everyone to notice. His ravens, Hugin and Munin, fly without circling. Heimdall keeps blowing dust from Gellerhorn but never raises it to his lips. Even Thor, in all his thunder and vanity, looks toward the sea more often than the sky. Because even he can feel it, something's off. But no one says anything. Because saying it would make it real. So instead, the gods throw more feasts. They drink deeper. They laugh louder. They shout at nothing in particular. And Loki smiles. You sit across from Loki once, just once, in a great hall full of flame and gold. He doesn't look at you directly. Just plays with a cup, rolls it between his fingers like a coin. He talks too quickly, and his voice is too smooth. You ask him, jokingly, is it true you'll end the world? He doesn't laugh. He just says, I won't end it. I'll just be there when it happens. And the way he says it, you believe him. Not because he's powerful. Not because he's angry. But because he sounds like someone who's already watched the world end once before. And didn't mind it. Later that night, the sky peels. Just a little. A thin line above the mountains, glowing soft red. You tell yourself it's dawn. You lie. You know better. Because the sun has been late 3 mornings in a row. And there are wolves on both horizons now. Not hunting. Just watching. You wake to stillness, but it's not peace. It's a pause. A gathering of breath before something enormous begins screaming. The world isn't moving forward anymore. It's circling. Tightening. And somewhere within that spiral, a name hums like a distant drumbeat. Fimbulwinter. You don't know who named it, or how long it's been whispered into the bones of mountains, but the moment you hear it, it fits. Too well. The air is sharp in your lungs, and each exhale paints the world in steam. You rub your hands together, not because they're cold, though they are, but because silence makes you want to do something. Anything. Fimbulwinter isn't a season. It's a sentence. In Midgard, the world changes its language. Snow falls. And then, it doesn't stop. 1 month, then 2. The roads vanish. Rivers disappear beneath ice crusts. You look out your window and realize it's not just winter. It's winter that doesn't end. Not the poetic kind. Not the charming one with reindeer and cinnamon and gentle flurries. This is the kind of winter that steals sound. That buries doorways. That kills not by cold, but by forgetting what warmth ever felt like. 3 winters pass. No spring. No sun. No rebirth. Just hunger with teeth and time without memory. The birds stop returning. The wolves grow desperate. And those who once worshipped God start worshipping fire, not as a symbol, but as a god itself. You hold your breath in the 3rd winter and wonder if the world has just stopped. And in a way, it has. Because Fimbulwinter isn't the beginning of the end. It's the forgetting of the beginning. In Asgard, things are no better. Well, they look better. Golden towers don't melt in snow, but beneath the glow, even immortality shivers. Odin paces. Not visibly, but you can feel it. He's reviewing every prophecy, every vision, every deal. He's looking for a loophole, and there isn't one. Not this time. The gods meet more often now. Behind closed halls. You stand near the edge of the feasting table, pretending to drink, listening between silences. Freya's eyes dart. Baldur's gone quiet. Even Thor's laughter cracks in the middle like a cup too full. No one says it, but they all know. Something is moving beneath the ice. You venture near the tree again. Yggdrasil. Still standing. Still trembling. You place your hand against its bark and feel pressure. Not from the outside pressing in, but from within trying to get out. A creak, like the inhale of a god holding back a scream. You step away. Not in fear. In reverence. Because you've seen what happens when trees fall. They don't break branches first. They break everything. Elsewhere, the myths stir. In Jotunheim, the frost giants shift like glaciers. Entire valleys disappear beneath a single step. The old ones, the ones no one dared name, begin stirring in their stone sleep. In the deep oceans of Midgard, something massive turns in the blackness. The surface bubbles, not with heat, but with memory. Jormungandr, the world serpent, yawns for the first time in centuries. The sea trembles, unsure if it's supposed to drown or flee. You watch the shore recede a little more each day and start whispering to yourself. If the serpent rises, we fall. You don't know who taught you that. You just know it's true. Meanwhile, in Helheim, the dead are counting. You can't hear them, but they are, tallying the living. Not with malice, just with inevitability. There's a ship, built in silence, made from nails. Not wood, not bone, but nails, the fingernails and toenails of the dead. Because apparently, that's what happens when mortals forget to trim the deceased. It sounds absurd, but you've seen it. A hull as black as grief. Sails stitched from shrouds. No anchor. No compass. Just a direction. Forward. It's called Naglfar, and it's waiting. You don't know where the crew is hiding, but you do know one thing. They're not coming alone. In temples across Midgard, the fires go out. No wind. No rain. Just darkness. You walk the streets of a city built for warmth and feel the heat pull away from your skin. The gods have stopped listening. Or maybe they're too afraid to answer. And in that silence, you begin hearing something else. It's not a sound. It's a rhythm. A pattern. 3 beats. Then nothing. 3 more. Then a pause. And finally, one long thrum that vibrates your ribs from the inside out. You don't know it yet, but it's the beat of the wolf's heart. And it's getting louder. Back in Asgard, someone finally speaks aloud. It's not Odin. It's not Thor. It's Tyr, the war god. The one who once placed his hand into Fenrir's jaws, knowing it would be bitten clean off. The god who traded power for peace, and got neither. He stands in the center of the golden hall, voice low, saying 5 words. We should kill the wolf. The silence after that feels like a verdict. Because everyone knows, they tried that. They bound Fenrir once. Used chains made of nonsense. The sound of a cat's footsteps, the breath of a fish, the roots of a mountain. Magic so delicate that even the gods didn't understand how it held. But magic wears down. Even myth has an expiration date. And now, Fenrir is chewing. One night, you dream of a gate opening. Not creaking. Snapping. You walk through it, barefoot, snow burning your soles, and on the other side stands a field of red light. No sun. Just a sky leaking flame. You hear laughter. You turn. Loki is there. But it's not the Loki you met before. This one isn't smiling. This one is waiting. And when you blink, he's closer. He whispers. You're late. You ask. Late for what? He says. For everything. You wake up choking on air that smells like ash. The third winter ends. Not with spring, but with silence. And in that silence, the ground hums. Not with life, but with footsteps. You step outside. The horizon is no longer white. It's gray. And it's moving. You don't remember the exact moment prophecy stops being a story and starts being your reality. Maybe it's when the ground stops freezing and starts cracking. Maybe it's when the ravens refuse to land. Or maybe it's when you finally stop pretending everything will go back to normal. Because the signs aren't hiding anymore. They're walking around. They're talking. And worst of all, they're not asking for permission. You find yourself at the edge of a great hall. Golden, vast, echoing with the memories of 1,000 feasts. But tonight? It's quieter. The gods still drink, still toss back laughter like mead, but there's tension beneath every grin. You feel it like static under the skin. And you realize, even gods bluff. At the head of the room sits Odin. One eye. A face carved by war and time. He's listening to someone speak, or pretending to. His spear Gungnir rests across his lap like a sleeping dragon, and every now and then, it quivers. Just slightly. As if it too wants to run. No one mentions it. But they all feel it. Because beneath Asgard's glowing skies, another prophecy coils tighter. You remember the first time you heard the name Völuspá, the ancient vision of the seeress. A story. A warning. A riddle wrapped in metaphor and fire. The Norns, 3 sisters who spin the threads of fate, had whispered it into the cosmos long ago. And everyone heard it. No one listened. The gods, of course, tried to ignore it. They said prophecy was flexible. Interpretative. Poetic. Nothing is fixed, Odin had said once. Everything depends on the choices we make. Which was ironic. Because Odin had already made his choice. He'd traded an eye for knowledge. Drank from Mimir's well for insight. Hung himself from the branches of Yggdrasil for wisdom. And what did he learn? That no matter how hard you try to stop the end, you're in it already. You walk with Odin once. Not literally. The All-Father doesn't take strolls. But you follow his thoughts. You shadow his silence. He stands near the edge of the world, overlooking the 9 realms, and mutters names under his breath. Not prayers. Not spells. Just names. Loki. Fenrir. Jormungandr. Surtur. Names that taste like thunder. Names that return with teeth. You see it in the way Odin clenches his fist around Gungnir. He knows them all. He's known them longer than anyone else. And still, he did nothing. Why? Because prophecy is a mirror. And even gods hate looking too closely. You pass a temple built of ice and silence. The wind outside howls, but the inside holds its breath. Carvings line the walls, serpents, wolves, fire, frost. But one carving catches your eye. A man, pierced by 100 eyes. You pause. Then blink. The eyes blink back. You stumble out, gasping, and realize. The myths are watching you now. You're no longer the observer. You're part of it. Scholars argue whether Völuspá was meant to be taken literally or allegorically, a metaphysical account of the end, or just a cautionary tale for the divine elite. But that's the thing about prophecy. It doesn't care what you believe. It unfolds anyway. You hear it again days later. Not in a temple, not in a dream, but in a woman's voice, on the wind. So soft you mistake it for snow until the words form. The wolf shall run free. The serpent shall rise. The fire shall walk. And gods shall fall. You try to unhear it. You can't. Back in Asgard, things are coming undone. The feasts grow smaller. The laughter thinner. Heimdall no longer guards the bridge. He stares into the horizon like he's trying to see something that refuses to be seen. You approach him once. Ask, "Is it time?" He doesn't answer. Just raises Gellerhorn slightly. Then lowers it again. You understand. Not yet. But soon. Somewhere deep below the realms, a chain hums. You descend through caverns of myth, past fireless torches and walls slick with stories that haven't been told in centuries. And at the center, you find it. Gleipnir. The chain that binds Fenrir. Forged from impossibilities. The sound of a cat's footfall, the roots of a mountain, the breath of a fish, the beard of a woman, the spittle of birds, and the dreams of bears. No, really. Whoever made it had a flair for the poetic. But the thing about impossible things, they don't stay impossible forever. You step closer. The chain vibrates. Not violently. Just enough to set your teeth on edge. And then, a snap. Not metal. Something older. A pause follows. Like the world blinking. And in that pause, you hear it again. We should kill the wolf. Too late. He's already free. You don't run. Not because you're brave. But because where would you go? There's no realm that doesn't feel it now. Niflheim is awake. Jotunheim is restless. Even Alfheim, the land of the elves, begins preparing for darkness. You see it in the trees, branches curling inward. You see it in the birds, flying lower, slower, like they're staying close to the ground just in case it opens. And in the sea, you see the serpent. Not the whole thing. Just one eye. It blinks. And the tide retreats. Back in Asgard, Odin makes his decision. It's not a command. Not a war cry. It's an exhale. He gathers the gods. Not to fight, but to remember. He tells them the prophecy, line by line. No edits. No denial. And for once, no one interrupts. They just listen. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a god can do is admit he is not above fate. You wander outside as the sky breaks open. Not with thunder, but with clarity. You finally understand what's coming. Not death. Not destruction. But change. Irreversible. Unstoppable. Unwelcome. The kind of change that peels away stories until all that's left is truth. And the truth? Even gods don't live forever. You've heard whispers. You've seen the frost. You've watched chains tremble and skies hesitate. But now the trickster smiles. And everything starts to unravel. You find yourself walking along the edge of a shadow. Not a literal one, but one that clings to the seams of memory. There's a chill in it, but not from the cold. It's the kind of chill you get when someone says your name before you enter a room. When you know the joke's already been told, and you were the punchline. That's where Loki lives now. In that shadow. You don't see him at first. Of course not. Loki doesn't appear. He happens. 1 minute the world is a little too quiet. The next, it's too loud. A flicker. A smirk. A chair that wasn't there. a truth you didn't ask for. And suddenly, he's beside you. Loki was always a god out of place. Born of frost giants. Raised in Asgard. Too clever to belong anywhere. Too emotional to be trusted. He walked through halls like a guest overstaying his welcome. Polite, charming, always smiling. But that smile, it cracked too easily. And when it cracked, the whole room turned colder. He used to amuse the gods. Shape-shifting into flies, snakes, horses, even a mare, that one time. Yes, that story. Historians still argue whether Loki gave birth to an 8-legged horse or just became the legend. Either way, Sleipnir's around. Awkward. But amusement only buys you time. And time was running out. You follow Loki, not with your feet, but with your attention. Because once he has that, you're his. He leads you to the edge of Asgard, where the walls shimmer with the weight of magic, and peers beyond them like he's reading a book only he understands. He doesn't turn to you. Just says, "They think I want revenge." You wait. He adds, "I don't." And then he smiles, that too wide, too smooth smile that makes you question if you're still real. "I want justice." You ask, "What's the difference?" And he replies, "Revenge is personal. Justice burns everyone." You watch as Loki walks into places no god is meant to walk. He slips into Niflheim like a rumor, leaves footprints in hell like a returning sun. You follow, unwillingly. The gates open for him, not because they welcome him, but because they recognize something worse is coming behind. Hel, his daughter, greets him with a nod. One half of her face is beautiful. The other? Bone-white silence. She says nothing, but you feel their conversation in the air. It's time. And she's not wrong. Deep in Helheim, something stirs. Not a person. A ship. You see it now, Naglfar. The ship made from the fingernails of the dead. Which sounds ridiculous until you see it, and then it sounds terrifying. Each plank groans like it's remembering the corpse it came from. The sails don't billow. They breathe. And at the helm, no one. Yet. But not for long. Loki walks the deck once, silently. Trails his hand along the edge. There's a pause in the air, like the moment before a note is struck. And then, a sound. Not a horn. Not a voice. But agreement. Naglfar accepts him. You step back. Because this isn't just a ship. It's a decision. Back in Asgard, no one notices he's gone. Well, almost no one. Frigg does. Odin's queen. She feels the absence like a loosened stitch in a tapestry. Something pulling at the edge. And Heimdall, the ever-watchful, ever-listening, watches the Bifrost more closely. He senses movement. A shift in the air. He places his hand on Gellerhorn, but doesn't raise it. Because sounding the horn means admitting it's begun. And no one wants to go first. You return to Midgard. Try to pretend the snow has stopped. That the cold is just weather. But deep down, something has left its place. And when gods step out of line, the whole world tilts. You see it in your dreams. Wolves on rooftops. Stars that blink and forget to reopen. Shadows walking backwards. You wake in sweat, in silence, and the words press against your skull like frost. Loki is gathering. And he is. In Muspelheim, the fire giants begin moving. Slowly at first, embers shifting under ash. But then faster. Hotter. Louder. In Jotunheim, the frost giants crack open their vaults of silence. Old weapons are unearthed. Names are spoken that haven't been heard since the beginning. In Helheim, the dead begin marching. No drums, no chants, just movement. A tide of regret and memory. And at the center of it all, Loki, calm, smiling, inviting chaos like an old friend who's always had a seat at the table. You want to ask him, why? Why now? Why burn the world? But you already know the answer. Because no one listened. Because no one thanked him. Because they laughed and mocked and pointed. Because even gods get tired of being the punchline. Loki isn't trying to destroy the world. He's trying to remind it, he was part of it. He returns to Asgard once more. Briefly. Long enough to walk through the silent halls, look up at the throne, and whisper, "You always feared I'd betray you." Then he smirks. You never asked why. And then he vanishes. No flash. No magic. Just absence. In the days that follow, birds fly in spirals. Wolves circle cities. The air grows heavier. And somewhere, on a ship built from the dead, a god smiles into the coming storm. You don't know when Naglfar will rise. Only that it will. And when it does, the ocean won't rise to meet it. The ocean will step aside. Because even the sea knows. Loki isn't coming. He's returning. It starts with a sound. Not thunder. Not screaming. Not even drums. Just a creak, long, groaning, bone deep, like the world itself exhaling after holding its breath for too long. You're standing at the edge of a dark cliff. No stars tonight. No moon. Just the black sea stretching into eternity. And then you hear it again. Creak. Snap. Creak. The sound of a ship being born. Not built. Not launched. Born. You blink. And there it is. Naglfar. The ship made from the fingernails and toenails of the dead. You know, that thing you assumed was just metaphor. Yeah. Turns out, it's not. It doesn't look right. Not in the way human ships look. It isn't carved or hammered. It's grown, like a scab that forgot to fall off. Massive. Covered in layers of what looks like ivory but pulses slightly, as though alive. The hull shimmers. Not with light, but with memory. You see faces. For a split second, you swear they're whispering. But then the breeze shifts, and they're gone. Almost. Loki stands at the helm. Hair swept back. Eyes darker than you remember. Not glowing. Glowing would suggest warmth. These are void eyes. Eyes that reflect not fire, but the absence of fire. He says nothing. Not to you. Not to anyone. Because he's not here to talk anymore. He's here to deliver. And Naglfar? She's ready. You step aboard. You don't mean to. But this ship draws you like gravity. Like regret. The deck groans beneath your feet, not with weight, but with recognition. You are part of this now. So are they. The dead. Thousands of them. Clad in fragments of battle and memory. Eyes hollow, but purposeful. Some are warriors. Some are peasants. Some are children. Death has no dress code. They don't speak. They don't moan. They just march, each footstep pressing their existence into the planks. Naglfar doesn't sail on water. It sails on grief. You ask, not aloud, just in your thoughts, where are they going? And the answer is simple. To war. Not a war. The war. The final one. The one that ends stories. You look back and realize, the sea is no longer water. It's souls. It churns and swirls like liquid fog, and yet the ship glides without resistance. Ahead, the skies darken further, like even the stars don't want to witness what's coming. And then, rising from the sea like a monument carved from screams, you see them. The giants. They aren't stomping. They aren't roaring. They're waiting. Waiting for this. Their moment. Muspelheim burns in the distance. You smell the ash long before you see the fire. But even fire seems afraid of what's unfolding. Then comes the sound that breaks everything. Giller horn. The horn of Heimdall. It tears across the sky like a scream from the bones of the universe. You feel it in your teeth. You feel it in your spine. And Naglfar responds. Not with speed. With purpose. Across the realms, everyone feels it. The gods stop feasting. The dwarves stop forging. The elves stop singing. Even the trees stop growing. Because when Naglfar sails, everything ends. Some scholars claim Naglfar is metaphor, that it represents the inevitability of death, built one small piece at a time. Like how every lie, every betrayal, every ignored omen adds another nail to the hull. Maybe they're right. But you're standing on it now. And metaphor or not, you're still moving forward. You turn to Loki. He's not grinning anymore. He's focused. This isn't mischief. This isn't drama. This isn't even revenge. This is orchestration. Loki didn't start Ragnarok. He just made sure no one could stop it. You look ahead. The sky splits. The seas rise. And Naglfar begins to climb. Not like a ship on water, but like a beast ascending a mountain made of thunder and prophecy. You realize, this isn't a vessel. This is a wound in the fabric of reality. And it's open. Somewhere in Asgard, Odin rises from his throne. Somewhere on the Bifrost, Heimdall clutches the horn. Somewhere in Midgard, mortals look up and wonder why they feel small. But you're on the ship. And the ship is arriving. The horizon doesn't rise to greet you. It splits. Like paper soaked in oil, the sky parts, not cleanly, not majestically, but violently, as if the very atmosphere is trying to resist what's coming through. And from that rupture, you glimpse the rainbow shimmer of the Bifrost, frayed, trembling, and fighting to hold its color. This bridge was once a marvel, a connection between realms. But now it's a target. You stand on the deck of Naglfar, breath shallow. You can't feel the sea beneath you anymore. It's not sea now, it's momentum. Unstoppable. And ahead, the bridge that connects everything becomes the doorway to destruction. Loki doesn't speak. But Gyllerhorn echoes again. Heimdall has seen you. And he's calling everyone. Back in Asgard, you feel the shift. The wind dies. The clouds flatten into bruises. And the gods, those ageless, arrogant, dazzling gods, finally stop pretending they aren't afraid. Odin steps to the edge of the council. His wolves snarl softly. Gungnir glows with an ache. And he doesn't waste words. He simply says, "It begins." And no one argues. Because it has. The gods arm themselves. Not with weapons. With memories. Because every blade they lift was forged for another war. Every shield they raise bears a scar from a battle that didn't end the world. But this one might. You watch as Thor lifts Mjolnir. Not casually. Not triumphantly. With resignation. Like he's gripping a funeral bell. Then comes Heimdall. White-eyed, posture rigid, standing on the Bifrost like the last defense of the sacred. You wonder if he'll run. He won't. He's never run. He raises the horn a third time. And this one isn't a warning. It's a welcome. Naglfar hits the base of the bridge. Not with violence. With certainty. The way a guillotine lowers. And you see it now, the armies behind Loki. Fire giants, frost giants, Draugr, things that don't even have names. A tide of forgotten oaths and remembered grudges. They don't scream. They don't chant. They advance. Heimdall draws his sword. It glows like the first moment of dawn. Clean. Noble. Pure. And then Loki steps forward. You brace for monologue. But he doesn't give one. He just smiles. A small, sad smile. Like he already misses what's about to die. Then they clash. Steel meets chaos. Order meets entropy. Brother meets brother. The bridge explodes with color and fire and sound, and you can't follow the strikes. They're too fast, too raw. Not battle. Not war. Reckoning. Heimdall screams, not in fear, but in duty. The kind of scream that splits atoms. He lands a cut across Loki's arm. Loki laughs, not out of joy, but pain. Real pain. Old pain. Back in Asgard, Thor watches. And waits. Not because he's a coward. But because his enemy hasn't arrived yet. And then the sea rises. You don't see Jormungandr. You feel him. The world serpent isn't a beast. He's a phenomenon. Like gravity. Like extinction. The ocean lifts, swells, and then parts. And there, rising like a mountain tearing its own skin, comes the serpent. Scales glinting. Eyes like eclipses. Mouth wider than truth. Mjolnir hums. Thor exhales. And you realize, they've both known this day since the beginning. You think you'll see a battle, but what you see is destiny. Thor doesn't shout, doesn't rage. He steps forward like a storm in human skin. Every muscle a prophecy. The Bifrost cracks beneath his feet. And he leaps straight into Jormungandr's gaping maw. The impact shatters your sense of scale. Thunder collapses across the 9 realms. Lightning rips through reality. And Mjolnir slams into scale, fong, bone. You blink. And suddenly, everything's underwater. They fight below the surface, not like warriors, but like gods unmaking each other. Each strike warps the tide. Each blow bends horizon. Thor is bleeding. Jormungandr is coiling. And neither is letting go. Scholars still argue whether this part of the myth is literal, whether Thor truly fought the serpent in flesh and fong, or if this is a metaphor for internal chaos, self-destruction, or the price of pride. You can't say, because from where you're standing, it's very literal. Then, the ocean stills. Thor rises, gasping. Jormungandr floats, unmoving. The god has won. But then, Thor takes 1 step. 2. Then falters. Poison, coiled in the serpent's final breath, crawls through his veins. He drops to 1 knee. And then Mjolnir falls from his hand. Thor, god of thunder, protector of realms, son of Odin, falls. But not in defeat. In completion. He did what no one else could. He ended the serpent. And in doing so, he fulfilled the prophecy. You don't cheer. No one does. Because this isn't a victory. This is a cost. And the bill isn't done. Back on the Bifrost, Heimdall and Loki clash one final time. There's no audience. No gods. No applause. Just 2 brothers. Fighting for reasons neither remembers. And as Heimdall pierces Loki's chest, Loki smiles, then drives his blade home, too, and together they fall. You look around and realize this isn't a battlefield. It's a graveyard for gods, and it's only just begun. You stand at the edge of ruin. Behind you, the Bifrost lies shattered, its fragments drifting like dying rainbows across the void. Ahead, Asgard burns, not with flame, but with the refusal to survive. It's a kingdom finally being honest with itself. And the truth is ash. You're not walking anymore. You're floating. Not physically, but emotionally. The kind of numb that only comes when the worst part isn't the end. It's watching it happen in slow motion. Thor is gone. Loki is gone. Heimdall is gone. And yet, somehow, Odin still stands. He's not armored. He's not screaming. He's sitting, alone, at the foot of the world tree. The ravens are circling above, slow and wide, as if reluctant to land. His wolves are nowhere to be seen. Gungnir rests across his knees, not raised, not glowing, just there. You expect him to look old. He doesn't. He looks finished. And still, his one eye burns. You approach, unsure if you should. But the moment your foot touches the root of Yggdrasil, he speaks. You've come to watch me die. You say nothing. Because what can you say? He nods, slowly. Then you will see how a god meets fate. Odin rises. Not quickly, but with purpose. Each step crackles with authority, not the kind born from titles, but from experience. From every war fought, every decision made, every life weighed. He walks to the edge of Asgard's inner wall, looks out, and there, just beyond the shattered gates, Fenrir waits. The wolf is enormous, but not just in size, in presence. Imagine hunger given a spine. Imagine rage taught to walk. That's Fenrir. Fur black as grief, eyes like collapsed suns, a snarl that could silence thunder. He isn't charging. He's waiting. Because this isn't a hunt. It's a meeting. You remember how this started. How Odin, fearing prophecy, had Fenrir bound with spells and trickery. How Tyr lost a hand in that bargain. How the gods laughed and congratulated themselves. And how Fenrir never forgot. This moment. It was always coming. Odin steps forward. And the world stills. Even the wind holds its breath. He doesn't speak a final word. No speeches. No poetry. Just a nod. And Fenrir moves. The impact is silent. There is no roar. No scream. Just the collision of inevitability and defiance. Gungnir flashes once, just once, and strikes true. But it's not enough. Fenrir is not flesh. Fenrir is consequence. And consequence can't be killed. Somewhere inside the wolf's fury, Odin disappears. Not in agony. In completion. Like a story finally closing the last page. The All-Father is gone. But the echo remains. You don't cry. Not because you're brave. Because you're overwhelmed. There are no tears left in the cosmos. The sky is ash. The ground is thunder. And every god you once believed in is falling. But this is not chaos. This is choreography. You start to see the pattern now. The symmetry. For every betrayal, a reckoning. For every lie, a consequence. For every god, a grave. Ragnarok is not madness. It is justice. Historians still argue whether the Norse truly believed this myth. or if it was a cautionary tale, about pride, about hubris, about ignoring warnings. But standing here, watching it all crumble, you understand. It was never about belief. It was about acceptance. That even the divine cannot escape the decay of time. A gentle breeze stirs the ruins. The ash begins to settle. And somewhere, deep beneath the shattered world, a seed waits. You feel it. You don't know what it is yet. But it's there. And it's alive. For now, though, let the ashes fall. Let the sky remain silent. The gods have fallen. The wolf has fed. And the old world has died. You awaken to silence. Not peace, silence. A different thing entirely. Peace comes with warmth, with a suggestion that maybe, just maybe, things will be all right. But silence. Silence is what's left when everything else has left. You're standing in a realm with no name. There are no stars, no sun, no moon, just a faint, glowing mist curling around the remnants of what used to be a sky. You breathe in. Ash. Memory. Echo. It smells like yesterday's gods. What's left of the 9 realms is scattered. Asgard. Gone. Midgard. Shattered and abandoned. Vanaheim. Smothered in fog. Jotunheim. Frozen still. Only fragments float now, drifting through a void that forgot how to hold them together. You walk, not because you know where you're going, but because something compels you. A tug, a whisper, a thread, something persists. And then you see her. Not a warrior, not a goddess, a girl. Young, maybe 15, maybe timeless, with hair like moss and eyes like river stones. She sits beneath what remains of Yggdrasil, the world tree now reduced to a stump and a single, stubborn sprout curling from the ruin. She touches the soil, and the sprout responds. You realize, she is life, and this is the rebirth. Her name is Lif. And beside her? Lifthrazer, the last man and woman. Or perhaps, the first of the next. No one's quite sure. They weren't gods. They weren't warriors. They just hid. In the hollow of a tree, deep within Hodmimus Holt, the forest that remembers. And now, they emerge. You crouch beside them. They don't speak. They don't need to. Everything you lost, the thunder, the wolf, the betrayal, the flames, is written into their silence. But in their silence, something new stirs. Hope. They begin to rebuild. Not cities. Not temples. A fire. Small. Weak. But warm. You watch as they gather stones. Pick berries. Laugh. Not like gods. Like people. And it hits you. Ragnarok didn't end the world. It reset it. A few gods stir in the distance. Not the same. Not unchanged. Baldur walks again, the bright one, long dead, now returned. His brother Hr beside him, the blind god, whose hands were once tricked into murder. They do not argue. They do not judge. They understand. Far away, the sun rises for the first time in, well, time. But it's not the old sun. It's her daughter, bright, golden, untouched by curse or prophecy. And in that light, you see color. Green, blue, life. You sit beneath the sapling of Yggdrasil. It's quiet now, but not hollow. Full. Brimming. The kind of quiet that waits for stories. Because stories will come again. Maybe not of gods. Maybe not of giants. But of people. Scholars debate whether this ending was a comfort to the Norse, whether they truly believed in a rebirth, or if it was just wishful thinking stitched onto the terror of Ragnarok. But here, Watching two humans light a fire? You choose to believe. Not because it's true, but because it's needed. And as you close your eyes, one last voice reaches you. A whisper from the roots. Not all ends are endings. The void fades. The sprout grows. And the story, your story, begins again. You feel the soil breathing. Yes, breathing. Because this ground beneath your feet is not dead. It doesn't just lie there like a victim of the end. It hums. It remembers. Each root whispers stories into the soles of your feet. And what's strange is, you remember, too. Not just what you saw, but what was before. Before the gods. Before the prophecies. Before the first lie cracked open the first fate. You remember balance. The world, as it exists now, is tender. Like skin after a burn. Everything feels raw. Every sound feels louder. Every breeze feels personal. And yet, there's a softness you've never known before. No thunder. No riddles. No spears or serpents or screams. Just birdsong. And something like peace. The new world is smaller. Not in size, in scale. Mountains are still tall, but they no longer demand worship. Rivers still run, but not to power cities, just to be. The sky still stretches wide, but it doesn't press on you anymore. It invites. You find a settlement. It's barely a village. Lif and Lifthrazer live there, among a dozen others. People who emerged from shadows, shelters, secrets. Not many, but enough. They don't ask who you are. Because in this new world, everyone is starting over. Names matter less than actions. Stories matter more than bloodlines. You sit at their fire. They offer food, and laughter, and questions. They want to know. What came before? Who came before? What were gods like? Were they kind? Were they cruel? And you tell them. You tell them about Odin, one-eyed and over-prepared. About Thor, strong, brash, tired. About Loki, clever, broken, lonely. But you don't preach. You remember. You skip the grand battles. You focus on the humanity. Because these weren't just deities. They were warnings. Reflections of us at our worst and best. You tell the children stories, and they listen like your words are firelight. Because they are. Later, as stars bloom overhead, new constellations with no myths attached, someone asks, do you think they're still out there? The gods. You pause, and then say the only honest thing. Maybe, but I think, they've become part of us now. And they nod. Not in agreement. In understanding. You rise before dawn and walk the forest path. Not to escape. To greet something. You find the tree, Yggdrasil sprout, taller now. Thicker. And nestled among its roots, a seed. Glowing faintly. Pulsing. Like a heartbeat. You don't touch it. You simply sit. And listen. And it speaks without words. Of cycles. Of loss. Of beginnings that only look like endings. Scholars still argue about whether Ragnarok was ever meant to be literal, a cosmic reboot, or a cultural metaphor. But the people here, they don't argue. They plant, and sing, and tell stories not to prove anything, but to feel connected. You don't need answers anymore, because you're part of the answer, and that feels like freedom. As the wind shifts, you look toward the mountains. There's something out there, something new. You're not afraid. You're ready. And with one last glance at the sprouting tree, you whisper, "Let the next story begin." You journey east, not because east matters, but because it feels like forward. And forward, in this world, is a choice. The terrain changes slowly. Forests thicken. Rivers braid across valleys. The old scars of Ragnarok, craters, broken stone, burnt earth, begin to fade beneath moss, mist, and time. Nature doesn't rebuild. It simply continues. Like it always knew it would outlive the gods. Along the riverbank, you find ruins. Not ancient, recent. Shattered shields. A twisted helm. A fragment of red cloth, still clinging to a stone like it doesn't know it's been abandoned. This was a battlefield. But no one remembers who fought here. Or why. It doesn't matter. Because even war, when left long enough, becomes compost. As you rest, a voice calls out. Not in warning. In curiosity. A woman steps into view. Weathered skin, sharp eyes, hair bound with feathers. She carries a staff topped with bones. Not threatening, just honest. You don't ask if she's a witch. You already know she is. She calls herself Vardra. Says she's the last of the vulva, maybe the first again. Her hut sits crooked at the edge of the clearing. Around it, rune stones half buried, herbs strung from tree limbs, and a wolf pup dozing beside a goat as if history didn't happen. She invites you in. You go. Inside, the air smells like pine tar and memory. There are no books. Only carvings, rows and rows of them etched into bark, bone, obsidian. Each tells a story. Each is a thread. You've walked far, Vardra says, eyes scanning your face. You nod. She chuckles. Not far enough. She feeds you broth thick with root and fire. As you eat, she speaks, not in full sentences, but in fragments, like divination scattered across a tabletop. The serpent is gone, but something coils still. Odin sleeps in stone now, yet whispers louder than ever. The gods are quiet, which is when they're the most dangerous. You ask her, what comes next? She smiles, a tired, sideways kind of smile. There's always something next. The question is who shapes it. She offers you a stone. Smooth, black, cool. Not magical, not yet. Name it, she says. Whatever you call it, it becomes. You hold it in your palm, and feel the weight of choice. The next morning, the hut is gone. Vanished like a myth fulfilled. Only the pup remains, staring at you like you owe it a destiny. So, you walk. Together. Along the ridges, you begin seeing new carvings. Not from Vardra, but from others. Symbols of hope. Glyphs of new tribes. Signs of rebirth. The world is rebuilding. But not in glass and gold. In meaning. You pass a village. They don't bow. They don't beg. They ask your story. And you tell them one, not yours, but someone else's. Balder, perhaps. Or Tyr. Or even Loki, reimagined not as a villain, but as a warning. Cleverness without compassion. They listen. They offer food. And then they retell your story to someone else. Changed, adapted, but alive. That's how myths survive. They evolve. Historians still argue whether Norse myths were preserved accurately or rewritten over time. But here, in this fresh age, there are no correct versions. Only true ones. And truth is a living thing. You sleep beside a fire. And dream, not of war, but of the sea. Not stormy, not calm. Just open. And endless. When you wake, the wolf pup is gone. In its place. paw prints leading east. So you follow. Because forward still means something. Because you are not done yet. Because somewhere out there, the story continues. You arrive at the sea. Not the old Midgard sea, choked with longships and gods yelling at monsters. This one is quiet. The waves lap the shore with the confidence of something that's been doing this long before your story began, and will keep going long after you're forgotten. You step onto the sand. It's cold. It doesn't care who you are, which, in a strange way, is comforting. You meet a boy, no older than 10, hair sun-bleached, skin wind-bitten, eyes full of sky. He's stacking stones. You watch silently for a while. Then, without speaking, begin stacking your own. The towers don't mean anything, but also, they mean everything. He breaks the silence. My father says this place used to have giants. You nod. And gods. And sea monsters. But they all died. Another nod. He squints at the horizon. Do you think they'll come back? You pause. Then say, maybe not in the way you expect. Later, you find driftwood carved with runes. Fresh carvings. Someone's been marking the tides. Not for prophecy, for fishing. The sacred is now practical. You like that. You walk further and find a temple. Not stone. Not gold. Just driftwood lashed together into a circle, open to the sea. Inside, sea glass hangs from cords, catching light in every color you didn't know existed. A woman tends the space. She sees you and smiles. Not many remember the old gods. You reply, I remember enough. She laughs. Well, that's more than most. She offers you a charm, a bead shaped like Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. It's not divine. It's remembrance. She says it keeps lightning away. You don't argue. You wear it. You sit at the temple's edge that night. The stars are vivid here. A new constellation forms, shaped like a snake curling back into itself. Not Jormungandr. Something else. Maybe memory. Maybe warning. Maybe just stardust playing games. The waves whisper to you. What ends, begins. You don't answer. You just listen. Because finally, that feels like enough. The next day, a storm rolls in. It's not violent. Just firm. Loud. Present. The villagers gather in the temple. They sing. You don't know the words, but you feel them. The ocean listens, and does not strike. Historians still argue whether Norse rituals had true power, or were just hopeful gestures. But standing in a temple of driftwood, with thunder grumbling over water, you stop caring what's provable. You care what's felt. The storm passes, and the sea leaves gifts, fish, shells, seaweed, and a sword. Old, rusted, familiar. You lift it from the surf. The weight is real, and so is the question it asks. Will you wield again? You don't answer yet. You just carry it inland, because the path isn't over, and neither are you. The inland hills roll like sleeping beasts beneath your feet, soft, wide, and still holding warmth from the sun. It feels strange to walk without fear. No giants. No gods waiting to test you with riddles or axes. Just wind, grass, and space. You reach a high ridge and pause. From here, you can see it, a new gathering. Not a village. Not yet. More like an idea taking root. Tents. Fire pits. Laughter. Humans. And they're building something. Not a shrine, not a fortress, a circle. Stones arranged deliberately, like they're trying to remember how to remember. You descend slowly, unsure whether you're guest, stranger, or myth. Someone spots you. A man with gray in his beard and sparks in his eyes. You walked from the sea, he says. We saw the storm break for you. You say nothing, but they take your silence as a sign, not fear, but purpose. Around the evening fire, they ask what you've seen. You tell stories. Again. But not the same ones. These versions are quieter. Slower. Odin no longer bellows. Thor doesn't roar. Even Loki seems tired. And yet, the listeners lean closer. Not for drama. For truth. Someone hands you a piece of bone, sharpened to carve. If it matters, they say, it should be written. So you do. Your first rune is clumsy, uneven, but the second, it hums. And suddenly, you remember a voice. Name it, and it becomes. That night, you dream. Not of flames. Not of wolves. Not of screaming. You dream of a library. Infinite scrolls, bound in bark and moss. Each shelf labeled with laughter. And on one scroll, in your own script, you were here. You wake with tears you didn't know you were holding. Days pass. The circle grows. Children are born. Elders pass. The wind continues to braid the grass into quiet song. And through it all, you walk. You teach. You listen. You help. Not as a god. As a witness. One day, a girl shows you her drawing, a rough sketch of a thunder god. But he's smiling. Holding hands with a snake. They're friends now, she says. You don't correct her. You hang the drawing in the central tent. Right above the fire. Because maybe, just maybe, that's the ending the gods never knew they wanted. You travel again. And again. Until your name becomes many names in many tongues. Not feared. Not worshipped. Just told. Like a path. Or a star. Historians will someday debate the figure who wandered after Ragnarok, whether they were mortal, god-touched, or myth-given skin. They'll argue over your footprints. But the people, they remember the warmth of your fire, and the way your silence taught them to listen. You stop beneath a full moon. It's larger now. Or maybe you just see it more clearly. You place the old sword in the earth, blade down, hilt up, and press a final rune into the pommel. It doesn't glow. It rests. Then you walk away. And this time, no one follows. Because your part is done. And their story is just beginning. You wander through twilight. Not night. Not day. Just that in-between hum that the sky holds when it doesn't know what to become next. The world is quiet again, but not in fear. It's a quiet made of balance. You pass a field. Wheat sways lazily in the breeze. The stalks are taller than you remember. Maybe they always were. Or maybe they've learned to reach further now that no god is watching. You pause and run your hand along the golden waves. And you think, this is what power used to protect. Now it simply is. There's a village ahead. One you've never seen. Yet somehow, familiar. The smell of pine smoke. The rhythm of hammer on anvil. A child's laugh bubbling through a market stall. And there it is again, the circle. Not stones this time. Chairs. Meals. Music. Humans gathered around nothing but each other. No thrones. No prayers. Just presence. A young man approaches you. Barefoot, ash on his hands, freckles scattered like constellations. "You're the one from the sea," he says. "You've stopped denying it. We're carving a story wall," he continues. "Everyone adds their part." He offers you a spot. A blank plank, carved from the root of a fallen tree. You trace your finger along the grain. You remember Loki's smirk, Thor's fury, Odin's stare, and you carve something unexpected. A spiral, open, endless, kind. They don't ask what it means. They interpret, because meaning, now, is shared. As night falls, the villagers gather under woven lanterns. They sing an old tune, one older than language. You hum along, and it feels like belonging. The stars bloom bright, and you catch a glimpse of something in the sky, a streak of light arcing low and vanishing behind the mountains. A falling star? Or perhaps a god leaving their final message. You lie beneath the open sky, arms folded behind your head. The earth cradles you like an old friend. You wonder if Yggdrasil, or what's left of it, still dreams. You wonder if the gods ever knew how fragile they were. You wonder if you'll ever stop walking. Historians will argue about the end of the Norse cosmos. Was it an apocalypse or a renewal? A destruction or a reset? They'll search for ruins. They'll decipher bones. But they won't find this moment. A heartbeat. A breath. A story whispered in the dark. Someone stirs beside you. A child. Eyes wide, blanket wrapped around shoulders like a cape. "Can you tell me a story?" You nod, and without moving, begin. Once, there were gods who thought the world ended in fire. The child smiles. But it didn't. You shake your head. It began. And far off, in the distance, you hear thunder. But this time, it's just weather. And you smile. Because the storm doesn't scare you anymore. You wake to birdsong, not some mythical cry of a fire-winged beast, just regular, cheerful birds who don't care that the world once ended. The air is crisp. The ground beneath your back is soft with dew. And for once, your bones don't ache from memory. You rise slowly, stretching like an old tree shaking off winter. There's no destination today. Just direction. You follow a narrow path etched by time, not intention. Ferns brush your legs. Sunlight pierces the canopy in beams so perfect you want to apologize for walking through them. A fox watches you from a distance. It doesn't flee. You nod. It nods back. Because sometimes the world speaks in silences. Eventually, you reach a valley cradled by hills. In its center, a solitary tree. Not Yggdrasil, but something descended from it. Its branches twist skyward in a spiral. Its leaves shimmer not with gold, but with stories, carved symbols, trinkets, strings tied by passers-by. A tree of memory, not myth. You sit beneath it, and it feels like home. Others come, one by one, quietly, like they were summoned without knowing why. A traveler with scars who says nothing. A girl carrying seeds in a pouch sewn from thunderbird feathers. An elder with clouded eyes but perfect hearing. They all sit. No one leads. Everyone listens. You don't speak at first. You observe. There's a rhythm here. One heartbeat passing to the next. One breath rising as another falls. The girl plants a seed near the roots. The elder hums something that might have once been a prayer. The traveler offers a blade, not to fight, but to bury. And you offer silence, and it is accepted. Later, they ask for a story. You tell them of the final battle, Odin's eyes locked on Fenrir's. But you skip the gore. You focus on the moment before the clash. When Odin looked at the wolf and knew this was always going to happen, and chose it anyway. Because sometimes the most divine thing isn't surviving. It's accepting. Historians will debate whether Odin went willingly, whether he hoped to win or simply meant to stand. But here, it doesn't matter. What matters is that someone chose not to run. And someone else remembered. The girl ties a green ribbon to the tree. You ask her what it means. New life, she says. You nod. Or old life, remembered better. She grins. And walks away. You linger. Not out of duty. Out of peace. Because this is not what came after Ragnarok. This is Ragnarok. The part no one talks about. Not the fire. Not the fall. But the stillness that teaches us how to begin again. You fall asleep beneath the tree. No dreams. Just breath. Just earth. Just now. You wake, but not alone. Around you, the clearing has filled, not with soldiers or gods, but with people. Families, wanderers, storytellers, misfits. Some you've met before. Most you haven't. There's no ceremony. No great announcement. Just firelight, soup, and stories traded like currency. And above all, the tree. Its branches now shimmer with dozens of tokens, trinkets, and symbols, each a memory pressed into bark. Someone sings. Off-key, but full-hearted. And you feel it. The divine. Not in thunder, but in this. A child climbs into your lap. Sticky fingers. Curious eyes. Were you there? They ask. You nod. But before you can answer, they ask again. Did you fix it? And the question knocks the wind from your chest. You look around, at tents patched with love, at scarred faces that still smile, at old gods repurposed as bedtime stories. And you whisper, no. But I stayed. Later, someone reads from a scroll. The tale of Balder, the god of light, of kindness, of the one who might return. They ask your opinion. You shrug. Maybe we're all Balder now. The thought hangs in the air. Not heavy, just true. You find a girl painting on the side of a wagon. She's drawing wolves. But they're not devouring gods, they're running through forests, chasing stars. You ask why. She shrugs. It's what I want to remember. And that's enough. The days stretch. Not toward an ending, just onward. People leave. Others arrive. The circle widens, contracts, and breathes like something alive. No one's rebuilding Asgard. No one's waiting for Valhalla. They're building something else. Something human. One night, as the fire crackles low, someone asks the question you've been avoiding. What do we do with the gods now? You consider it. You remember Thor's roar, Loki's grin, Odin's silence. You remember the end, and what came after. And you say, tell their stories. Just leave room for our own. Because gods were never the endgame. They were the mirror. What we feared. What we loved. What we hoped we'd become. But now we get to choose who we are without them. The next morning, you rise before the sun. The clearing is still asleep. You walk to the tree. And hang one final object. A feather. No one saw you take it. No one will know it's yours. But it flutters in the breeze like a memory finally let go. You don't say goodbye. You don't need to. You just walk. And somewhere in the hills, a new story begins. It doesn't start with, once upon a time. It starts with, so there was this person who walked from the sea. And that's enough. That's everything. The fire has gone quiet now. The stories have softened, their echoes sinking into the soil like rain after drought. You lie back beneath the stars. They no longer judge you. They just glow. The grass beneath your fingers feels warm, as if the earth itself is humming a lullaby only you can hear. The gods. They sleep. Not in tombs. In memory. And memory is safe in you. So breathe in. Hold it. Let it go. The tale is done. But you're still here. So drift easy, traveler. And maybe, dream your own